Hi. In this video, I would like to share with you another example of applying hybrid modeling in symmetry. The same, I put together 8 steps here. The first and foremost, we need to understand what the problem really is, what we want to solve, and then what is then the process, and then we need to define what are the things that we are considering. What are the dependent variables or the Y's or the targets or the KPIs or the key performance indicators, things that we want to improve or solve. And then for each of these Y or targets or KPI, we need to understand the process itself. We need to be able to identify what are the independent variables, the X or the features or the handles or whatever you want to call it. And then understanding the correlation between Y and X, or finding the correct X, it can be done by our own chemical engineering first principle understanding, like physics of chemistry or biology. And then we could also ask help for Lean Six Sigma techniques, like fishbone diagram or 5 Ys, or like tree analysis or FMEA, and so on and so forth. And then once we know the Y, once we know the relevant X of each of the Y, and we need to collect the data. And then, or if we don't have the data, like if we don't have the field data, we can then make a model of the plant or the process in question, and then make sure it is accurate enough, and then we can then run that model to generate enough data so that we can use it for further modeling. And then once we get data, we need to also confirm, even though we think it is, but it may not be the way that we think it is. So we need to confirm by using statistical analysis for the correlations between the X and the Y's. And then once we confirm the data, we do a little bit of cleaning if necessary, and then we make the neural network model for each of the Y. So these confirmations using the statistics, I think it's covered. You can find in YouTube videos of other people that can explain for you the statistical analysis necessary to find any correlations. So we make the neural network model in symmetry. So once we get the neural network model, in general, if we don't use symmetry or whatnot, we can start making the model from the simplest one, first principle based, linear or non-linear, and then we work further up to more complicated models like neural network or decision tree. And then once we get the neural network model accepted in terms of its performance for each of the Y, we then save the models in the ONNX format, and then in symmetry we have this text editor for JSON to communicate the ONNX model and then symmetry, and then we run this symmetry model builder to create PKL file, and this PKL file is the one that we're going to export to the symmetry unit operations. Symmetry unit operations that is capable of running the hybrid model. So an example. So we have the natural gas dehydration unit. So I have this simple, it's typical. So we have gas coming, and then there's a knockout drum, and then the gas is then it contains water. So we need to get that water out, otherwise it will then create problems in the pipeline. So that's why we call it dehydration unit. So the gas containing water is then water is being absorbed by glycols. So the water going or coming from the top is already, hopefully, is dehydrated, or it has less concentrations of water. And then typically we measure the dew point, the water dew point. So we need to make sure that it is then below a certain limit. So the glycol rich in water is then sent to, it has this high pressure flash, and then we have also the regenerator column, so remove the water, and then depending on the temperature or the reboiler duty, so the water is then being removed here and then let go to the flare in this low pressure vessel. And then in this low pressure vessel as well, in this plant, it has this solvent that can be used to increase the purity of the glycol, because in this regenerator column, the reboiler is already stripped out of the water. Water goes up, and then the glycol goes down, and then we have this additional stripper where the solvent is then being used to strip out the remaining water. So the glycol concentrations over here in this stream is higher than the one in here. And then because of these higher glycol concentrations, it can then it is then expected to get more water from the incoming gas. So that the water dew point is then being controlled, and then we have that you can minimize also the reboiler duty in the regenerator. So all of this process is being modeled in this very simple one box. So we can imagine. So now we have a fixed or a certain flow rate which we can vary. So once we get the model, and then the model is then verifying the actual performance of the plant. And then we can also vary because this lean glycol is a handle. So this is a flow control of lean glycol, and there's also a flow control of the temperature in the reboiler, and also the flow control of the reflux, and also the flow control of the solvent. So we have the lean glycol handle 1, and then reboiler 2, and then reflux 4, and then the solvent 1, 2, 3, reflux 3, and then the 4 is then the solvent, and then the fifth one is basically the feed flow rate. So we have 5 independent variables, as you would see here. So we have lean glycol, reboiler temperature, solvent flow rate, reflux flow rate. So all of these are exactly the operating variables, things that the operators can control. They can open and valve each of these X variables, and this feed flow rate is like a disturbance. So it is there, so sometimes it can increase, sometimes it can decrease, depending on how much gas that we are getting from the upstream. So we have 5 dependent variables or input layers in this neural network scheme, and then you can then depending on how the system behaves, you can then devise how many hidden layers and how many neurons, and what are the activation functions of each of the neurons. So you have to make like a systematic trial and error for each of these problems. So what are the KPIs? What are the KPIs? So obviously, number 1, we need to meet the water dew point. Number 2, we want to minimize as well the reboiler duty, so it is there. Number 3, we would like to monitor how much is then the solvent loss, or the glycol loss, in this case, the glycol loss. And then number 4 and 5, and we need to know how much is then the emission, CO2 equivalent emissions from the high pressure vessels and then the low pressure vessels. So we have like 5 input and then also 5 output. So we get the data, we make the model, make sure the model match the plant data, and then we run case studies on the model, and then we generate that model. So we use those data to generate the machine learning model, and then that machine learning model is basically the one that we activate over here. So we enable hybrid modeling in the symmetry, and then we activate that. We load the model, and then we activate that. And then once we take these activations, the extension variables that we defined in the model, the input variables and then the output variables, they are then shown over here. So once we key in the input, the output will then be calculated accordingly. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 models, because we have 5 independent variables. We have some data, as I put it here, and then we have the PKL model is the one that is being imported in this symmetry unit operations. And then if you would then see, this is then what we have in symmetry. So all of these are there, and then we have this machine learning model. So I just copied this stream, to there, so that we can see. So this is then the whole first principle model, and then this is then one box of machine learning model, and then we can see. I give them the same inputs to the first principle model, and then the same output, also the same output to input to the machine learning model, and then these are then the predicted, the 5 predicted key performance indicator: the water dew point -25 for the ML, and then the reboiler duty, the loss of the glycols, and then CO2 equivalent emissions. So all in all, they are 1 to 3% of error, which is okay. So we could also try to make sure, just to play around to see the applicability of this. For example, 355, make it 350, and then the first principle model is then now trying to calculate all of the columns, vessels, and stuff, and then columns being the most difficult unit operation to solve. and you can see it takes some time to solve. Yeah, we need to wait. In the meantime, let's see if I can then run in parallel the machine learning model 350, and then so it cannot be. I mean, it has to wait because we are now running the first principle. Yeah? It's two independent model now. So it's taking very long for the because of the recycles and stuff. See, we have quite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 recycles, and that makes it very complex or very difficult to solve mathematically. Okay, so okay, this thermal, and then here we have 350. If I change it to 350, sorry, 350. It recalculates again the all of these units in the first principle model. So I think you get the point. So I need to show. I need to deactivate this first to disconnect this disconnect this, and then the 355 just to show you the ML model. See, it's done very quickly. 350, it's also done. So you can see it's very quickly to solve the ML model, but not that very quick for the first principle. I think that's all that I can share with you. I will share more cases later on in the future. So see you next time. Bye bye.